Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube, where we have the TNT takes for you on Survivor 43, Episode 5. I'm your host, Chris, and we've got a new co-host for this week because Jake sadly isn't feeling up to it this week. Came down with a bit of a cold. So Michael, or aka Mucky, I don't know if I should be calling you Mucky since you've changed your name to that. How should I introduce you, Michael?
Yeah, just call me Mucky. You know, it's my lifeline nickname. It's on all my socials. So yeah, the Muck Dog is here.
I can't wait to talk to the Muck Dog. I hope he's bringing the thunder for this one.
Absolutely.
Mucky, all right, this is going to take some time to get used to. Is a fellow Aucklander. He lives in New Zealand, similar to myself. So we've talked about potentially doing the Australian Survivor content together moving forward, and also potentially the Challenge Australia, who he basically, I think you're going to be new to that, which I'm excited potentially to dive into the Challenge Australia with you here on the channel as well. And it works out really well because our timelines kind of align. But Mucky, tell the listeners and the viewers of the podcast, those that haven't seen you, talk to me. I think you've been on the podcast twice, once for Survivor South Africa and once for Australian Survivor, talking about heroes versus villains, which is probably going to be the next theme over in Australia. Tell people, where did your love for Survivor start? Give them a little bit of a background.
Yeah, so I watched my very first season of Survivor in 2016. I have some memories of Africa, actually, the third season of the American franchise, but I started with the Australian, and as I kind of got more into the Australian franchise, I then jumped onto American, and then quite recently South African, and yeah, so basically my grandparents watched it, and as a way to keep in contact with them, I started watching it as well, and I've just been hooked ever since.
And I've heard you're a bit of a recruiter as well. I heard you're a recruiter over here as well. You're recruiting more of your friends to watch the show. You've got torches in the back. You're thinking about doing something like a live Survivor over here in New Zealand, which I don't think there are many live Survivor communities here in Auckland. Really exciting.
It should be really exciting. It's definitely a slow process making my own Survivor, and with all my friends, like, I'm sorry, but if you're my friend, I'm forcing you to watch an episode or two or a whole season. So that's the price you have to pay to be friends with the Muck Dog.
Yeah. Well, listen, if anybody listens to this and they're in the Auckland, New Zealand region and they're really interested in getting involved, you can go to the About section on the YouTube channel for the Nullified Take. There is an email address there that you can email. It's the nullifiedtake@gmail.com. Send us a message. Let us know you want to get involved. There would probably be plenty of ways you can get involved, maybe either as a player, helping out voluntary, being a volunteer or something like that when the actual show is up and running. And stay tuned to the channel to hear more news about this thing that he's trying to put together, which I'm really excited for you, Mucky. It's going to be awesome to see.
Yeah, slowly but surely. It's going to cost around 20 grand. We're in a very small pay as we go, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. Well, hey, we've got to start it somewhere over here in Auckland, New Zealand. It's a small community, but a very passionate community when it comes to Survivor. But back to Survivor 43, Episode 5. What has been your overall, sort of feelings about this season as a whole? Have you been enjoying it? I know you've been watching it in the shadows. You haven't had much of an opportunity to talk about it. What's your general feeling about this going into Episode 5? Have you been happy with what you've seen?
Oh, absolutely. I think in terms of the new era, this has been the best pre-merge so far. Like, I think season 41 was still kind of new, but it was really all about Ricard and Shannon, and nothing else really mattered. In season 42, the characters were great, but it was very predictable votes, and I even found that in the post-merge as well. Like, there's a lot of very predictable votes. Like, you wouldn't have had to watch the episode, you could have guessed, and that person would have gone home. But I've been genuinely blindsided, like with last week with Lindsay going home. That was the first time I ever got blindsided since John went on David versus Goliath. I did not see that coming. And even with poor Gio tonight as well, I was starting to think that he might actually survive. So I feel like the characters are great. The editing and strategy has been great. And yeah, I think it's the best New Era season so far.
Yeah, I mean it's been exciting. I've got my own opinions about it. I'm getting more used to the new era of Survivor. I'm a salty old school fan that loves the old school format of 39 days. I love a lot of what sort of was the foundations of what the show was built on. But I
Yeah.
mean you've got to admit it has been a fun season. The characters have been delivering. I think you're right. 41 was something new. 42 built on it, and I actually thought 42 the pre-merge part of this season was actually the best, and then after the merge it started losing a lot of steam for me as it got in towards the end, but this one has started very strong, so I'm just hoping now that we also get to see a very strong merge post-merge section of this game. And when you're looking at it right now, when you're looking at people for confessionals, we might as well bring it up. I didn't think I was going to bring it up this early on, but since we're talking about this, shout out to Just Strategic on Reddit who does this every week. So he puts down who's done what type of confessions every single episode. When you look at this, there's one clear standout, Cody on 29, but I was blindsided. You were blindsided by the Geo vote. I was blindsided by 0 confessionals from Cody. Like I just couldn't believe it because I've kind of felt like he has been Survivor 43 up until this point, but 0 confessionals from him this episode. He's still leading, but then there are some other players that have also had a lot of screen time. You've got Jesse with 25, you've got Ali with 21, you've got Carla with 21 as well, and those have probably been the 4 standout players I would say in this pre-merge section of the game. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like Ali, Gabler, Cody, and Carla, they've just been everywhere in this season so far, for good or for bad. Obviously, I feel like Cody's a very positive good, whereas Gabler, it's like every time he's on screen, he seems to be doing worse and worse. Like,
yeah, Gabler is a good shout out. He's been a big character, I think, as well. The last 2 episodes, they've started cooling down on him. So it's an interesting edit. I know that normally when it comes to talking to Jake on the podcast about the edit and how things are shaping up, he doesn't read too much into the edit at times. But I do think that it's an interesting story where he's been such a big vocal character. And then slowly but surely, we're seeing less and less of him, which makes me think that he is going to go deeper than what we think. They're not going to deal with him immediately, opposed to someone like Janine, who's had 1 confessional, 5 confessional, 2 0 confessionals, and then suddenly pops up for 7 confessionals this episode. Tied with Cassidy for most confessionals. I feel like she could be someone that goes very early after the merge. If we followed the traditional edit of Survivor US and how somebody suddenly gets a lot of exposure and then 1 or 2 episodes down the line, they're gone. Think High last season.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think Janine and Ali's game have been really tight, which we've seen throughout this whole pre-merge that Sammy has been wanting to flip on them for quite some time. So I can definitely see a case where Sammy and Gabler are able to turn on both of them, and maybe she uses the idol to save Ali, but she's taken out in the split or something.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the episode. So obviously we start off here in the episode back at the Coco tribe. They've just gone to tribal council for the very first time. Again, it's going to be an interesting trend with them. My head's racing ahead to think that they're going to lose another time. I really, really am against, and this is one of the new school things, and I hate sounding like a broken record. And this is something that people who have listened to this podcast, they're probably, Chris, get off it. You've been on this for 4 or 5 episodes now, but losing the Flint, punishing people that heavily when they lose, I feel like has a really bad effect and weakens tribes a lot. And we see a little bit of this now with Coco, this episode struggling again, but we can talk about that a little bit later on as we get into it. But the fallout here is everybody at camp sitting there having a conversation, and obviously Cassidy, she's felt the heat. She got to vote her way. She wants to immediately know who came for her. She asks them in camp point blank, listen, let's get all the cards on the table. Who voted for me? And I'm shocked that people are so open and free. I guess it's a small tribe. It's hard to hide here. But, Ryan is trying to talk to her. She figures out it's Geo, not Ryan. And then Geo goes and throws Ryan under the bus immediately, saying it was Ryan's plan here.
Yeah, no, Geo is a wild character. Like he thought he was on top for the entire time, and he was actually on the bottom the entire time. What a crazy character. But I mean, I loved his downfall. I mean, if you're going to go out, play hard and be cocky all the way through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
both him and Ryan just completely misreading the room throughout this whole
Mm,
episode in
yeah.
regards to understanding where they fit into it. And I think it does come down to maybe there's emotional intelligence, social skills. Obviously, with Ryan, I forgot what exactly it is, but he's had some issues growing up when it comes to
Mm,
reading people in social situations. So maybe that's still playing a role here. And him and Joe just got this bond very early on. I saw the storyline, Maki, coming miles away because I said to Jake a couple of episodes ago, I think it was episode 2 or 1, I was like, okay, I see how this one's playing out. So I wasn't shocked by Gio going this time. They tried to shock me. They tried to put me onto Cassidy potentially being the second Lindsay vote in a row where they were going to get rid of her. And we'll talk about if they did the right thing or not. But they tried to throw us off that track. But the storyline was telling us Ryan and Gio had this close relationship. And I said to Jake a couple of episodes ago, most likely what's going to happen is Joe is going to get sniped first. Ryan's going to be forced to be there on his own without his people, and Ryan becomes the wild card at the merge, willing to work with anyone else
mm,
but this team.
yeah. I was actually kind of convinced that Ryan was going to get voted out. I was really hoping he would because I think everyone's massive fan of Eric giving up his immunity necklace, like everything to do with like the effing stick with Jason. And I think just planting the seed of like thinking you're at the top but telling people to vote for yourself and then actually getting voted out would have been like, yeah, he almost Zayn knighted himself, I reckon.
Yeah,
I
and
reckon.
it's interesting you mentioned that, and I know we're jumping slightly ahead here, but it's hard not to do it when you're talking about this situation. But Ryan obviously definitely played himself in certain situations, wanted to be the puppet master, but Gio down the line in this episode, he's going to become an even bigger threat than Ryan, and
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that aspect of it because the advantage that was brought into the game is one that I really hate. I really do not
Oh,
like the
same.
knowledge is power. So I feel like production has tried to make that a thing now for 3 seasons in a row, and they've had egg on their face for 3 seasons in a row, which I'm so grateful for at this stage.
Yeah, the best part about the knowledge is power is the fact that it hasn't worked. Like I feel like if they were able to take someone's idol, the shock factor isn't there. But definitely like you have such great shock factor, like when Xander gave Liana the fake, when Mike gave Omar the idol. Just having that shock factor and realizing that the whole like now everyone is shifted onto you now is definitely the best part of the knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know again we're jumping ahead, but it's hard because it makes sense talking about this with the knowledge is power. How shocked are you by the level of gameplay of these people? Because I feel like the level of gameplay when it comes to Survivor and the contestants that are participating in it now is going backwards every season. It feels like the contestants are less strategic about what they do on the show than what they were 15 years ago.
Mm.
Season 28, you get a Tony Vlachos out there or someone that's a real player of this game. A Boston Rob, a Sandra, the players that were very self-interested and would keep information tight and understood the power of like literally knowledge being power. I feel like that is changing quite a bit now, and that now it has become a thing of everybody is just sharing information. Like, hey, I've got a this, I've got a that, and we again see a bit of that happening here in this episode, with everybody knows that Janine's going to get an idol. Everybody knows that who's risked their vote, who didn't risk their vote, except for Janine trying to be smart about it at one stage. But still, there's so much information that is just freely shared when we know that knowledge is power is a thing. Like, I mean, as a fan of the show, as a student of the show, I would not go into a season right now and tell anybody anything, and I would be less inclined to actually even use the beware advantage because of the risk that I would lose my vote. How are you seeing it the same way as me? Like, people are just making interesting decisions out there. They're so eager to play. They're so eager to participate in a twist heavy season that they're just freely sharing information when they know these types of advantages are in the game.
Yeah, I think it's extremely hard because in the 6-person tribe, like there's this whole thing of you've got nowhere to hide, but it just means like just any slight small mistake is the reason why you're voted out. And I think that Jenny Blindside last season is a perfect example of that. If nobody had really risked their votes or like picked up their advantage, she probably makes a merge that season, like
Mm.
super easy. But I think if you've lost your vote, you kind of have to tell other people's so that people can kind of plan like around that. Otherwise, let's say if it's just like tonight, let's say if Carla, the swing vote, had lost her vote, then it's 2-2 and there's potential rock draw.
Mm.
Yeah, so so I
Shout
feel
out to
like
Jenny firstly. Shout out to Jenny firstly. She was my my winner pick last season. And sadly I fell flat on my face putting her as my winner pick. But I agree with you. I think she could have gone a lot deeper if things didn't turn out the way that it did. But you bring up some valid points there. And one thing I will say is Carla is probably the player that impresses me the most at this stage out of all of the players out there this season, because she has got an idol in her pocket. No one knows about it. But just the fear of this knowledge is power being in the game, and someone like Gio going on this journey, comes back, gets it, can't keep it a secret to himself, lets Carla know, trusts the wrong person at this stage, which does not make sense to me. And specifically look at Gio, and I'm like, there was some great observations made by Cassidy as well, saying that Gio is not a great player of this game. And I agree. That is the thing that just does not. And listen, I know I'm being critical here. I haven't played the game. I'm not out there, but I can tell you one thing for sure. I would not let people know I've got an advantage unless I absolutely have to. I'm in such a bad spot where I am grasping at straws and I'm trying to use this as a bargaining power to get myself a little bit further or build trust. But I don't feel like in his mind, he thought he was in that much trouble. He thought he was running the show. So he was in a position of power. Why would he have gone to Carla with that information immediately and let her know, which ultimately is the thing that makes him the biggest target in the game, because she thinks to herself, well, if he's got this, and if any time he realizes that I've got an idol, that's too powerful an advantage to have in the game, where you can just take my idol from me by having that knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. And Gio is definitely a massive player. He likes to take massive risks. He was saying that in preseason, he'd rather be voted out for going too hard than to have not really played at all. So definitely, like, as soon as Gio finds out Carla has an idol, he's definitely going to use it. So then he has an idol for himself. So it was definitely the right play for Carla to take out Gio after knowing that information.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised that the players that are winning this game right now are the non-big players. Like, this game really suits people like Erica, like Marianne, the players that sit back for 70-80% of the game. Like, Erica, I think, very strategically placed herself in very good spots throughout the game to be able to win the game at the end. And the more I think about Erica and Marianne's game, I put Erica's win above Marianne's win, because I feel like there were times within the game where Marianne had absolutely no control over her destiny, especially after the merge. She was relying on people not to vote for her. I couldn't see her strategically really running those parts of the game, where Erica, after the hourglass twist, I don't think she was ever in danger. She was constantly with the numbers. She formed her own little mini alliance with Heather and Xander, and worked through that pool with the likes of a Deshawn and a Danny that season. And she had like a very good cocoon around her, where I just don't think Marianne had that. But again, both of them played the right game, where the less risks you take in this game, the better it is right now. And Jeff is putting this marketing tool out there like, listen, there's all these crazy twists. There's all these big moves to be made. You need to have a resume to win the game, which people are falling for that sales trick, and they're all doing it, but they're sniping each other before they even get to the finish line, not realizing even though it's a 26-day game, it still is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, well, I actually do think the fact that it is a 26-day game is actually much easier to do a sprint than to do a marathon, because the only risk of Erica, I would say with Marianne, I think if she does make the finale, she does at least have a case to win for her being like such a massive character throughout the season.
Oh, 100%. She was very likable. I'm not talking about her likability. I think the fact that she won hurt her chances of coming back. If she didn't win, I think she was a lock for the next All-Stars. But then again, they might still choose to bring her back. But her likability is off the chain. I'm just specifically talking about the strategy part of it. But still, her gameplay was the right gameplay. But I'm very interested. You said you feel like it's easier to do a sprint. So why have we not seen it in the 2 seasons that this format has played?
I think it's more specifically because, especially with casting to this day, we haven't, I'd say like the closest, well, probably the most strategic person we've seen has been Carla out of all 3 seasons. And I think that's more because casting has now sort of changed from getting these massive strategic players like a Suri, like a Tony, to now people in terms of their backstories. Because Jeff has really been hitting for so long that Survivor is all about family. It's like a family show. So they now want to start bringing in people who are all about family and have these emotional backstories. And when you're watching at home, you kind of feel sorry for the contestants, and you feel like you want to root for them more.
No, it's an interesting observation, and I kind of feel like, in a roundabout way, and you correct me, I don't want to put words in your mouth at all. I love the fact that
Mm,
you're looking at it differently. I love different opinions. I think it's so important. We all have different things we enjoy about the show, but in a roundabout way, you kind of confirm what I was thinking, because I love the strategic players. I love the game players like
yeah,
Carla. Like Carla, for me this season, hands down my favorite, because she's playing a cutthroat game, and I love to see it.
yeah,
We don't see those characters very often these days. I thought Jesse was one of them. I really thought
yeah,
Jesse was at that level, but Jesse, for me, this episode went a little bit down when he went back to camp after the journey, and he had an
yeah,
open conversation with them saying, "Hey, I lost my vote." I don't get it. And we could
yeah,
definitely dive into that in a little bit. But I think you agree with me that the level of gameplay, the level of strategic player has gone down in recent times. Now, that doesn't
yeah,
mean we haven't had a great level of characters come into the show,
mm,
but characters are very different to strategists and people who are really good at playing the game. I think you need a balance. I think this season is getting it right with the likes of people such as Owen, Jesse, and Carla potentially. Those would probably be the players I would say is at that level. I think Ellie's got potential, but she's making a lot of bad reads at different times at
mm,
this stage.
yeah,
I still love Ellie. I know that some people were very annoyed with her in the beginning of the season when she got people that listened to this podcast when she got rid of Moira, which is fair.
yeah,
Everybody's got their favorites, and if someone takes out your favorite, you're not going to be happy. But
yeah,
I still think she's a great player as well. But I feel like the level of that gameplay, we're not seeing the same greatness when it comes to just good players playing this game right now. Doesn't mean that they're not entertaining though. Different thing.
yeah, absolutely. No, there have been so many entertaining players, but yeah, definitely last 3 seasons we haven't had any Micronesia or heroes versus villains or even Kageyan moves made just yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It seems like a very interesting post merge coming up, especially when you have wildcards like Sammy, like Cody, and like Carla. I definitely do think some massive moves are lying ahead of us.
Yeah. And again, we probably won't talk about him that much this episode because he didn't have much. He didn't have any coverage this episode, which was the
Yeah,
shock for me of the whole episode. Cody, I think Cody, when we look at the new era of Survivor, he's the only person that have stood out enough for me where I'm going to be like, even though season 43 doesn't have a theme, so it's going to be hard to remember it in season 55 because nothing specifically is going to be like, oh yeah, remember David versus Goliath. It was the underdog fighting the bigger dog, type of thing in the
mm,
game. It's going to be hard to remember that, but I'm going to remember Cody at this stage because he's standing out in my mind because he's a larger than life character. I feel
yeah,
like he's probably the one character in this era of Survivor that could be like the new age Rupert, the new age, coach, the new age bigger than life character that we remember seasons from now. Because even though we've got big characters, it's for me personally, it's kind of feeling like we're not reaching either that level of character or that level of strategist. Or what we've had in the past is we've had the strategist, the character, and everything in one, and we're not getting
yeah,
that player necessarily. Carla's up there for me because Carla for me is
yeah.
like a new age Sari potentially at this stage. It's kind of how I see her.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I definitely do think that Carl's the new age Suri, and I think Cody is like the new age Tyson or Coach. I recently rewatched Turk Chains, definitely one of my
Mm.
favorite old school seasons, and I
Love it.
think
So
Cody,
undervalued. So
yeah,
undervalued
it's so
when it comes to fan
undervalued.
community. Yeah.
Yeah,
Loved it.
exactly. Especially post merge, like top 5 post
Yeah.
merges of all
How
time.
how's Sierra not come back? How is who's the girl who got third that season with the dark hair? I forgot her name now.
Erin,
Erin. How's Erin and Sierra not come back? Both of those
how's
ladies
Taj
need
not come back?
Taj needs to come back. Like, yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot of players that needs like we're gonna go on a tangent here, but I agree with you. Great
yeah.
season. Sorry, I interrupted. You were watching Token Jeans.
Oh yeah, and it's like Cody's definitely got a mixture of Cody and Tyson energy. Like he's a massive
Mm,
goofball, like Tyson, but he also kind of has that energy of like, look at me, I'm so amazing, just like
mm.
Coach. And yeah, and I think like Cody being selected to go raid the other tribes camp last week was just perfect. Like there's no other player that would want to
Highlight
see raid. Yeah, exactly. Definitely the best
highlight of
part
the
of the
season.
in my opinion. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Highlight of the season to date.
Yeah.
I do think he's more aware than Coach. I do think he's more
Mm,
self-aware than Coach, and that makes him a dangerous player because if he can pull this win off, he's going to be. We're looking at Tyson. We're looking at Coach. I don't think he's as funny as Tyson, and I do think someone in the live. And I know we're sadly not doing this one live, so we can have the live response back. People were saying he is his own person. He's Cody, and what I said is I think Cody is Cody. But I think that he will become someone that we'll look at in the future, and we'll compare other players to Cody if he continues with this level of gameplay. I bet, for me personally, for an entertainment value, I want to see Cody win. For a pure strategist, someone that's just playing the best mastermind game, I want Carla to win. And Jesse is an enigma because let's talk about it. He goes through this journey. He's had great reads for the most part, maybe not the best read and who he aligned with in the early stages of this game. He has been led astray slightly by Cody as well, who's told him to target someone in the game because she's a salesperson when Cody's a salesperson. So he hasn't been flawless, but those are like minor things you can forgive. But he's been a big character. He's been someone that has been seen as very strategic. I think a lot of people have seen him as a potential winner this season, but he makes the decision to go there, comes back, and lets his tribe know that he doesn't have a vote. There's only 4 people in this tribe. Now, there is no reason to strategize with him. He's not a valuable asset if they go back to tribal council. Now, he may have known that when they get to the merge, he gets his vote back, or maybe he's only got that. I think he's still going to have 1 vote where he won't have a vote. It is so dangerous in this game when you tell people, I've got a gun, but I've got no bullets in the gun. There's nothing in the chamber.
Exactly. And already Noelle had so much power with her steal a vote because her and Dwight could have done so many different things, like maybe even a 2-1 on Cody and Jesse, or even just dump her straight on Jesse. But now the fact that he doesn't have a vote, if she stole Cody's vote, then Jesse or Cody can't really decide anything. It all comes down to just Noelle and Dwight and whether or not if Cody can play his idol correctly or not.
Yeah,
whichever it doesn't impact anything.
No,
neither of them can vote.
Well, in Jesse's defense, he didn't know that Noelle had that advantage. She's also told someone. She told Dwight, but luckily, it looks like Dwight is someone she can trust, and they were kind of forced to work together because they were both left out of that vote, and they have now found a very strong bond. I'm still hopeful that this Vesey tribe can keep things under wraps and keep it together, and that they don't tell people that Jesse lost his vote, even though I guess they can now, by deduction, work out that there were 3 people, 2 of them lost their vote. Let's backtrack it a second here. Like, how shocked were you when all 3 of them were like, we're risking it? Because I honestly thought Jesse had the presence of mind, even though he knew that Gio was bluffing potentially, and nobody was fooled by his bluffing and saying, hey, I'm at the bottom, I need to do this. If you're in that situation, you're going out there, someone is that gung-ho, and let's put yourself in Jesse or Janine's shoes, because both of them are going into this thing, I would say, feeling reasonably comfortable that they're in a solid spot. Would you have risked your vote if you felt like you were in a solid spot going into it? Do you think it's worth it in this game? Or do you think this is Jeff's propaganda and marketing? You got to play a fast and quick game and take all the risks that you can that are playing in their heads when they're out there.
I guess I'm very similar to Gio, where I'd rather flame out than have gone far in the game and not have accomplished anything. But I do think for Janine, I definitely think, in terms of where she thinks she is in the tribe, she obviously doesn't know that Sammy's coming after her and Ellie. She's pretty certain it's 4-1 against Gabler. So I don't mind her risking her vote because she safely assumes she's in a very comfortable spot. But for Jesse, I think it was definitely the wrong move, especially being down so little numbers. It is 2 against 2, despite how they do seem unified and dominating challenges. You're still in the spot where anyone could get taken out, really.
Yeah, you see, for me, I'm a big moves game player, but not a dumb moves game player. So I don't think I would have done this. I think it's a dumb move for both of them. I do understand that you would rather flame out, and I've also got that mentality. Believe me, I would not be sitting around camp not wanting to strategize, not wanting to take control, which would be probably there's a bigger likelihood that someone would vote me out for trying to run the show and maybe being a little bit too, I guess, forward in my approach of getting numbers together than what there is of me taking a risk on some of these gimmicky things within the game that potentially could take my vote away in a 4-person tribe or a 5-person tribe. And in Janine's case, I would say it really baffled me because Janine, and this is where I was watching this, and I'm just like, what's happening with the level of players that are playing in this game right now? I was really shocked by this because Janine just got an idol. She just did the impossible, got all the beats together. She had an idol in her pocket and she was greedy to get something else. None of these players there used this as an opportunity to potentially forge some sort of a relationship, an alliance. Like, listen, Joe, I hear you. Even in the back of my head, I think you're talking absolute BS. I will entertain you. I hear you. You're in trouble. Listen, I'll throw you a bone. Let's make a deal. You throw me a bone when we get to the merge. We see if we can work together type of thing. None of that happened from what we saw. And to me, the numbers in the game are so much more valuable than the different gimmicks and advantages that we got. If it was all about advantages, if it was all about getting all these gimmicks, then Drea would have run away with the season last season.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hate to plague out my two boys, Liam and Nathan, but we play a lot of Roblox Survivor. So there's like a game mode on the
Where's the invite?
Roblox.
Yeah. Where's the invite, Mikey? I haven't had the invite yet.
I'll give check an invite next time, bro. But there's actually a game mode on Roblox just for.
I've played it before. I think it's called Outlaster, right?
Yeah, Outlaster.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. And there are like advantages everywhere. And I think kind of what the new era is like is actually almost exactly like Outlaster. Like it's extremely short because after the first vote, bloody like half the lobby ends up quitting. So you're already at the merge. And I kind of feel like that's how the new era has become. It's like as fast, like just get through everyone and just chuck in a bunch of random advantages to spice things up. It's kind of more like an arcade, I guess you can say, more than like a long, lengthy season, which is why I do think you can definitely sprint this season. Because if you're able to work with the advantages really well to your favor, you can easily just dominate the whole way through.
Yeah, I hear you on that, but I still think the likelihood of it is a lot less. And history in the show has shown us that having all the advantages don't automatically mean that you're winning the game. Very few players have been able to do that, and the players that have done that are not the favorite players of the audience. Like, your Ben Dreberg and getting all the idols and, sort of forcing his way to the end to win. It's very rare that you see that happening. So I just feel like too early in the game, I feel like a lot of people, players, fans alike, are getting lost in the source of thinking you need to just take risks left, right, and center. Doesn't matter the consequences. Again, I'm sure there are certain situations where you have to do it. If you're aware you're in the bottom, you go there, you take the gamble. You tell people about your event, you hustle. But if you're sitting pretty, like Jesse and Janine are sitting at this stage, for me personally, I looked at that and I was just like, I'm baffled by these moves. Like, I just do not get these moves. But then again, it warms my heart to hear Jesse say, I'm only getting one opportunity to play this game. I want to show my son that I'm here to take chances. I'm here to go. Like, I understand the reasoning behind it. Would I have made the same decision? I don't know. It's hard. I'm not there. I'm not in the moment. But I feel like a great opportunity was missed potentially. And maybe they weren't feeling the vibe with Gio. And that could come down to the whole fact that Gio also has not been in the best of spots with his tribe. Clearly, there's something something's not translating to us on the camera that is happening at camp, where maybe people are looking at him saying he's not a genuine person, or he comes across as a bit dodgy. So there's not even a worth in trying to foster a relationship here or get an alliance with him. There could be something we're missing there, and that's why they didn't go down that track. But I want to backtrack it again, because we have been jumping it all over the place with this episode, which is fun because then we get to talk about the interesting plot points as they happen. A big plot point that we skipped over, and this is one of the reasons I was so baffled by Janine being greedy, because there's no other word for it at this point. She didn't need to risk a vote. She's got an idol in her pocket. I mean, you don't need more at this stage. You're doing good. Take the win, Her and Ali, they go on a walk. They're looking for idols. Apparently, they've been doing this for quite a while. We've had a question, myself and Jake, what happens if that idol gets found on the tribe? Would they automatically not be able to get it because all the beads aren't on the camp, because some people have already been voted out? That got answered here. It was only the beats of the players that are still in the game that needed to be collected, which is fair. It would have been very unfair if she had to find a way to Ponderosa or where Mariah's at this stage to go get a bead. But they find this clue, the beware advantage. Janine is very shocked. And she's like, I can't believe I've got this. She goes to Ali. She talks to Ali. What do you think about Ali? Because Ali seems to be similar, and I want to put words in your mouth. She seems to be similar to you right now. It's like, Just go ahead. Let's just confident. She's so confident.
Yeah.
No, we're going to get all of it. Don't worry about it. Open it. Ellie seems really confident about the fact that they can pull this off. It does play out for them at the end, but they openly talk about Owen as Owen comes walking in and he catches them in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I think they played the situation really badly because they should have just shown Owen as soon as he arrived rather than try to hide it. Because now he kind of thinks, wait, why were they trying to hide that from me initially, if that makes sense? But it was quite interesting to hear Ellie talk about how Owen is actually more on the outs than Sammy, because she talked about how Sammy's more on their three and Owen's kind of on the outs. And I think all it would have taken is for her to tell Sammy that, and then Sammy would have been able to flip Owen just like that.
Yeah, the impressive thing for me is more Sammy. And Sammy,
Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't mention him previously. He's been impressing me this whole season. Like, as another player that should be mentioned in the Jesse and Cody and Ellie and all those kind of players that we've mentioned previously. Sammy's been really good. I can't place Sammy yet. Sammy could very well still be a winner because constantly when we see this different the two factions within this tribe, the Baka tribe, and Ali and Janine being together, the boys being on the side, Sammy is clearly shown as being against everything that Ali and Janine is trying to do. He's wanting to work with Mike Gabler rather. We've said on the podcast that's a smart move because Gabler is not aware he's not a great player and he's someone that could be strung along and could be a vote. And he's playing Gabler beautifully by giving him information, and Gabler feels really loyal to Sammy now. Sammy's got him in his pocket. The person for me, funny enough, and again, it shows there's a bunch of really bad reads happening here across the board because Ali thinks that she can trust Sammy more, which shows that Sammy is playing a great game because they're not picking up the fact that he's not buying it, and he's not been buying it for a while. Owen, on the other hand, I've been saying on this podcast for a while, I find him hard to read because he's keeping information away from Gable and Sammy for as long as possible until he is forced to talk about it. Then he talks about it, but still he isn't giving commitments, which I kind of read correctly at that point, that Owen is still keeping his options open, which he confirmed on this episode. He said, I am still thinking about potentially going with Ali and Janine because I feel like I've got more options that way. What that means, I don't understand at this stage in regards to him having more options. But again, I thought Owen could potentially be a winner, but I've got to say Owen's reads are off as well. I feel like Ellie, Janine, and Owen, I don't feel comfortable that any of those three would win at this stage because Owen didn't pick up on that little thing that you mentioned about Ellie and Janine trying to be deceitful. And he didn't see that as a red flag. He was still like, oh, I might just want to work with them, and easily gave them the beads, where I've got more respect for Sammy and that tribe as being the real player with Mbaka at this stage.
Yeah, and I think actually working with Gabler and Sammy actually opens more doors than Janine and Ali. Because let's just say if that tribe just got decimated and there's Owen, Ali, and Janine going into the merge, and you had to vote for one of them, they're going to target Owen because he's more of like a physical threat and he does seem like a strategic player. Whereas if he goes with Gabler and Sammy's obviously he's much larger than him. Gabler's a massive wild card. You don't know what's going to do. He can easily throw them under the bus and flip. But it's much harder for him to throw Ellie and Jeannie under the bus, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and again, he could easily influence Gabler, and Gabler could probably do what he says, because I don't feel like Gabler's looking for people to tell him what to do out there. It's what it comes across. But the likes of an Ellie and Janine, they want to be in the driver's seat. So Owen at best would be in the back seat. He's not going to be riding shotgun or driving the bus at this stage. It's kind of how I see it on that group. So I don't fully get it, but it's an interesting dynamic. Obviously, Janine ultimately does get the beats from everyone. And that's the point where Sammy pulls Gabler to the side and gives him the lowdown, and Gabler feels like he's just messed up his game by doing that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. If you had to be a betting man right now, do you think Baka sticks together when they get to the merge next week, or do you think that this is a tribe that's going to fracture very quickly?
I think it's going to fracture very quickly. I feel like Woman and Jeannie, Ali and Jeannie are going to...
They're both women, so yeah.
I feel like they're going to try flip things onto Gabler. Because if there's anything like the hourglass twist that they might be doing, obviously without the hourglass, as Jeff has announced, and it's like one half of the cast is immune and the other one isn't, I reckon they'll definitely throw Gabler under the bus. But I don't know. I definitely feel like Sammy, especially, could turn it onto Ali and Jeannie. Yeah, I feel like the bucket group is gonna fracture. I think Coco will stick together for a bit, but I think Vessi is basically Taku 2.0. I think they're gonna stick together almost the whole way through.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I had the feeling personally, I even did a poll this week on my channel, which I might bring up the results here for a second, in regards to who do we think has got the winning player at this stage on the show. And I can't bring it up right now, but I'll read it out to you. I said, which tribe is the winner this season? This is prior to this episode. It was extremely even. And in the lead, out of all the tribes, is Coco at 37% of people thinking that they've got the winning tribe. 33% of people think it's Vessi, and 29% of the people think it's Baka. So I think that the people who are voting for Coco, I don't want to put words in their mouth, they're probably heavily leaning on a Carla win potentially. Those that are betting on Vessi, there's a few people that potentially could be a person there. And Baka got the lowest percentage of votes. So that would be equal potentially to what you're thinking about Baka splitting. But the one thing I think may keep Baka together to a certain degree was that little bit of collaboration between Vessi and Baka to form what I like to call Bakesi as an alliance, potentially going into the merge here. And they may just take a swipe at some more Coco numbers going in there. Because my thoughts for a long period have been that I feel like Carla, even though she's clearly a standout player, I don't know if she has surrounded herself with people that are going to go deep in the game, because I just don't feel like we've got enough of an edit around some of those players. Like, we know Carla really well, we know Ryan really well, but how well do we know the other players there? Like, Cassidy's been a non-entity, and I don't feel like James, yes, he's a chess person, but I don't feel like I know him to the same level and he's had the same exposure as some of the other people in the game.
Yeah. I actually have thought for a long time that Carla could be the merge vote, or the one after, like a Tiffany vote out. And the reason why I say that is because I always think back to 41 about Sydney. Sydney was a massive character in the pre-merge for someone who had never gone to tribal council. Even Danny and Deshawn didn't get as much content as Sydney. And that's because she got brutally robbed at the merge. And I can kind of see that with Carla, because definitely for the first few episodes, before they even went to tribal council, obviously where the episode where she found an idol, but even before then, she just had so much content, like so many confessionals about everything, whereas no one else really had anything to say. And we always saw things from her perspective. So I feel like they're definitely building her up to something. Yeah.
I think personally, for me, and this is what I love about Survivors, because we all read the edit so different, and we all of us have our own views of how it's going to play out, and 98% of the time, all of us are wrong, and that's fun. But I feel like Carla, personally, the way the story is being shaped around her is that she will see people fall around her, and she's going to be the last standing person from Coco, I reckon. My money as a potential merge vote is going to be, crazy enough, another woman this season. I'm thinking it's going to be a Janine, or it's going to be Cassidy. I think it's one of those two that are going to be the first to go. I could be wrong, could be completely off my rocker here. I mean, there's still a lot of players left in the game, and it can still go either way, but it's going to be interesting, this merge, because I do think between the three tribes, there is enough evidence now as we head into a merge where there's fractions within each one of these tribes. I don't think Vessi is airtight. I don't think Dwight and Noel completely forgave the likes of a Cody and Jesse for what they did. Jesse is still not someone that Dwight necessarily trusts that much, but the likes of Baka have got their issues. Coco's got issues. I mean, Ryan is now completely out of the three with Coco, so he could run anywhere. So we could see a very similar situation, and even a more fractured situation than what we did last season, with different little factions in the game working together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be much more of an individual. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be more an individual post-merge than the last couple of seasons, because in the last couple of seasons, it was still kind of tribe against tribe. And then around the final 8, that's when they became individual. But I think it's going to be individual right from the very start.
Yeah.
which
Let's
is
talk a little bit
exciting.
about the immunity challenge here. So the immunity challenge, bit of an obstacle course that they've got to run.
Yeah.
They end up having to go through this stick obstacle. Apparently, Jeff says it's an exact replica that they've done for all three of them, which is impressive. And I paused it for a second. I was like, it actually does look exactly the same.
Yeah, it
And
did.
this is where I think, I know you didn't watch the Challenge USA. Tyson was very critical of the Challenge USA, saying that certain challenges that weren't up to the same standard as Survivor, because they do replicate things and make it as fair as they can across the board. He reckoned that in the Challenge USA, that wasn't always the case. So it was interesting to see that play out and for Jeff to point it out as they were going through this challenge. They had to get through this as a team tethered together. So a lot of communication and teamwork required as they go through it. It gives me kind of flashbacks to, well, who's the fella that dragged the other fella across the course when they were tethered together?
Oh, in Micronesia, right? With
Yes.
Joel. Yeah, yeah, it was Joel and shit. Yeah.
Luckily, no one was Joel level of intolerant here, and they were all working together as they got through the sticks.
I hit my head. I don't care.
classic moment in Survivor. Feel very bad for Jed, but anyway, so they get through this first bit. Then they had to get water over a balancing beam-like obstacle while balancing it on a pot. Had to throw it in a bucket, open up a gate, and then ultimately roll these balls up a platform to land it at the end. It looked like it took a little bit of skill to do it, and it was very interesting to see the person who put themselves in this clutch position for Vesey was none other than Dwight. I feel like Dwight has been putting himself in the pre-merge in a lot of these clutch situations, but for someone that is pulling it out here in the end, still feel like he's a little bit under-edited, but he wants to have those clutch positions in his hand. I think Cody and him, those are the two that have been impressive for Vesey when it comes to the end game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dwight's been very under-edited. Like, apart from like the first episode, I don't really know much else about him. But I think the time will come. I actually think he's going very deep in the post-merge, considering like he hasn't really built up much of a reputation, because you can't say he's a snake. He hasn't even casted. Wait, no, he has voted. Never mind. But I think
he hasn't betrayed anyone. He hasn't betrayed anyone in the game at this stage.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the only thing that maybe can come back to bite him potentially, I don't remember how truthful he was about the fact that he lost his vote in the beginning, and it did come out. He did tell his tribe about it. So he's really done nothing. He's done nothing but build trust. Then in some ways, he's the nucleus between Noel and the likes of a Jesse and a Cody in that tribe. He's the one that keeps them sort of together. I think you could be right. I think that tribe, the Vesey tribe, is the most likely tribe to stick together. If we had to look at it, I think Noel's the only one they need to look out for. But Noel's also the connection with the likes of Owen and James, which shouldn't be forgotten because of the little chat that they had.
I feel like Cody is the one to watch out, because I think if anyone is going to flip from Vesey, it's 100% Cody.
Really? You think he'll turn on the likes of a Dwight and a Noel? I haven't seen enough for me to convince me that he's going to do it. He's turned on his alliance once, voting out Neckar, who he was very close to, but I feel like that was very difficult for him to do. I don't see that game player in him. I just see a very big character in him, but I could be very wrong. So it'll be interesting to see who's got the read right on him and which way he will go. I think that if he gets backed into a corner, he's 100% the player that will do it, but I don't think he feels like he's in that corner right now.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. But ultimately, what did you think of this challenge? Did you like it?
I love the challenge, because I don't think we've seen this challenge in the last couple of seasons, have we?
I don't remember specifically this challenge. I think we've seen variations of different parts of this challenge, maybe in different, because they do take certain components and then add them into different obstacle courses as a whole. The one with the ball that they had to roll up in the end with the little platform at the top, that platform was not very big. That little bit at the top that they had to roll on, so it looked very difficult. And the biggest shock for me on this challenge was at the end when Ryan knocks all of them off. Do you call fake news on him saying that he threw it on purpose, or do you think
it's a master plan?
Do you think he messed it up and he's like, oh no, I know how to turn this around. I'm just going to tell people this was my plan from the start, or do you think that he actually was that cocky and confident to throw this challenge because he thought he was in charge?
I mean, he was always aiming for that same corner. So part of me is like, you can kind of see how he'll be able to throw it. But also at the same time, there's different strategy, I reckon, where if you were to roll the ball up and it lightly touches another ball, then it has room to kind of roll to the side, if you know what I mean? Whereas you do run more of a risk if it hits the other side and then hits the other two balls, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, I think that for me, this was the wrong move once again. And it's easy to be critical sitting on the sidelines here, but I don't know what this thing between Cassidy and Ryan was, but I felt like it was more Ryan feeling it than Cassidy in the beginning. And the only reason that Cassidy started getting annoyed was because of the inside information she got throughout the episode that Ryan was targeting her. So I found it very interesting. I guess Cassidy did say in the beginning of the episode, I'm going to go after the people who turned their backs on me or wanted to vote me out. So she was coming for Ryan at some point. So it's either you take the shot or you don't take the shot. But throwing challenges is always something that I find difficult to comprehend unless the person that you're trying to get out is not in with your tight alliance and they're clearly on the outs and you know they're going to flip when they get to the merge. I don't know if the signs were there that if Cassidy and Ryan got to the merge together, that Cassidy would run away. And I think that Ryan would have still had some safety within numbers within Coco. The smart thing to do is the exact opposite of what tribes have been doing in recent times, which is to turn their back on the tribe that they've been with until the merge, to trust someone that they've met for less than 12 hours and then try and start a new alliance with them. It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it really doesn't. But I mean, I do think like there's some logic to throwing a challenge because you got to assume the merge is coming up soon, either 13 or 12.
Yeah.
And I do think if Ryan is right and like it's him, Gio, James, and Carla all together, if you take out Cassie, then you're one tight 4-person unit, if you know what I mean, with no sort of weak links anywhere. But obviously there is also the wrong where you can accidentally Drew Christie yourself out of the game, which almost potentially could have happened. So it's definitely high stakes, but I think if he was right, it's a really good move. But obviously he's not aware of this game position at the moment. So
yeah, like listen, I think there's definitely certain situations where it does make sense to do it. And it's easy to sit outside. And I know I've been critical throughout this whole podcast and this whole recap. It's easy to sit on the outside and have the full picture, which he does not have while he's playing. Now, another thing for us to analyze and criticize, the ultimate move here to get rid of Gio and turn the screws on him. Was that the right move for the likes of Carla and James, or should they have gone in a different direction here, and why?
I think it might have actually been smarter to take out Ryan instead of Gio, because I think Gio has no leverage. Even when I was talking to Janine and Jesse, both of them were saying how, you know, we don't really like trust him, we don't really buy what he's saying, because the only thing that makes him a threat is his knowledge is power advantage, which he has to correctly guess if Carla has an idol or not. But I think long term, I think Ryan's definitely the better one to go because you knock out a physical threat. Because when you get to like a merge situation, no one's looking at your tribe in terms of threats, if you get what I mean, for challenges. It all comes down to Bucket or Vessi. And I think Ryan, he is somewhat good socially as well, whereas we saw that Gio was not. So I think if you took out Ryan, not only do you eliminate the physical threat, but also a potential social threat as well. Whereas like Gio, he would have just been off all by himself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting observation. And this is why I love Survivor, Mucky, because you've got your plan. You think in a certain way that would make sense to you. And then I've got a different view on this and may or may not be right, but I think this would have been the bigger game move in my mind. Not necessarily that it's the truth out there. But I think the right move was to vote out Cassidy. And the reason I think the right move was to vote out Cassidy was because then you've got Ryan and Gio still loyal with you and James. They feel like they've always been in that tight four. You go into the merge with 4 players that still feel like they haven't betrayed each other and potentially would be together, rather than break up the 2 people that are loyal to each other, which now means you've got 3 loyal people, 1 person that's in the outs that potentially will not want to work with you because you've just taken out their right-hand person. Plus, you've got the ammunition that Gio offers. Gio clearly trusted Carla enough to go and talk to her about it and let her know. She was the only person that we saw him tell this to. He didn't go to James. He didn't go to Ryan even at this point. So clearly he felt a certain connection, both of them being from the Latino community, both of them being from the gay community. They clearly have a different bond that is different from what he has with Ryan. I feel like Carla, I've been praising her this whole season, and I still think she's probably one of the best, if not the best player out there, and a little bit of a sleeper because people don't see her and the threat that she poses. I do think that she potentially played herself a little bit here, and that she could have kept him in her pocket and then used that ammunition that Gio has, have that ammunition in the pocket when they go and take out another tribe or another powerful player in the game, where if they get the right information at the right time, no one would have known that Gio had that. She would be the only one. And she's told no one about her idol. So there's no risk to her. Plus, Gio is not coming for her. So I feel like the right move here, even though the internet would have absolutely melted if a fifth woman got voted out in a row, would have probably been to vote out Cassidy.
Yeah. I actually do think that voting Cassidy is actually the wrong move for Carla as well. Because then let's say if they don't merge, like in the next episode, which due to recent history, it has always been like 12-person mergers, you're now stuck in a 2-2 against Gio and Ryan. So now you have to turn on your other close ally, James, all for the sake of Gio, if that makes sense. So I definitely do think that it was a smart move to turn on the two boys, because then if you don't merge, you still got the numbers and your allies. And if you take out the other boy, then you've got a perfect type 3 going to the merge anyways. But yeah, I think like even I was shocked that they were going to be merging next episode.
Yeah. I mean, that with Survivor, uncertainty is a big thing. They have merged in the past at different times. They have traditionally not merged this early in this format of the game. So, it makes sense in that way. But yeah, it's interesting. I hear you. I think valid points both ways. It'd be interesting to hear in the comments what people think if they listen to this. Let us know, what do you think was the right move? Would it have been to take out Ryan, Cassidy, or would have been the right move to take out Gio? I might even put a poll up on the channel at some point to see what people think, what their opinions are. But it would be good if they listen to the arguments of both of us and sort of analyze it and think about it. What do you think is the right direction going in here? I feel like that long-term game is so important. When you get to the merge, you need numbers, but that's going to scatter, and it's going to be important, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Ultimately, there was the funny scene about Ryan lying to Cassidy the whole time, Cassidy knowing about it, playing along, Ryan talking in tribal council about being such a great person, a giver, a person that always wants to give back, and Cassidy just couldn't stop rolling her eyes. So that is going to come, there's going to be some funny drama in the next episode leading into the merge, because those two people, especially Cassidy, cannot stand Ryan, because Ryan was being full of BS for most of this, and she knew it.
I mean, what can I say? If we could give awards, I think Ryan should get the Mastermind award, because he played everyone so well. Yeah,
he played himself.
He played himself. Yeah,
he even played himself. He didn't realize he was playing himself at that point.
Exactly.
All right, let's get into a couple of the more housekeeping things that I've got on the list here still for us to look at. So firstly, we're going to look at the different teams to see who does Jake and I still have left in the game. So looking at this here, these are the teams. It might be the first time you're seeing it, Maki. I don't know if you've seen these teams before, but Jake has been doing extremely well, cleaning it up here in the pre-merge section of the game. But ultimately, he is going to lose Gio. Gio was his last pick of the season. He lost his first person last week, which was Lindsay. She was his overall third pick of the season. But Gio is going to join the voted out section there. So going into the merge now, we have got myself still left with Owen, Noel, James, Cody, Sammy, and Janine. We've got Jake left with Jesse, Ali, Ryan, Mike Gabler, Carla, Cassidy, and also Dwight. I am still nervous at this point, Maki, because I think Jake has got some real contenders in his team, the likes of a Jesse, the likes of an Ali, the likes of a Carla. Those would be my most fearful picks at the moment to potentially win this for Jake. What do you think of the teams as they sit right now? Do you think there's still some hope for me?
I think there's a lot of hope for you, because I feel like all the big characters are on your team compared to Jake's, because you've got Cody, you've got Sammy, he's going to make a splash. James, he might make a splash. Noel's going to make a splash, whereas Jake's got the more quieter sort of gameplay people, if that makes sense. So I think if we were to base it off the last 2 seasons, then Jake's going to take it out. But I have a feeling that a big player is actually going to win the season. So I can got this, Chris.
I'm ready for
Kiwi's
it.
got to support his Kiwi,
Hey, listen, I'm loving it. Jake has been trash talking me this whole season, telling me that the only reason I won the last 2 drafts that I participated in was because he wasn't there. So I need to bring it back home. I need to get this 3rd dub in a row. But, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be interesting. I hope you're right about the big game player winning or the big character winning it this season because, like you said, I do have a lot of big personalities in my team because I enjoy shouting and rooting for the big personalities.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I don't value, like, in fact, like I'm giving credit where it's due for Carla. She's not, like, she's a big personality as well, but she's an undercover personality. I really enjoy that, I just find it more entertaining seeing someone play from the front instead of the back. It's what I find more entertaining to watch. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that happens. Let's go over the points here, and I will bring up the spreadsheet afterwards so you can have a look at that as well. But overall, the 2 teams, we've got a point structure in place, Mucky. How it works is that for each player, for each confessional they get a point. If there's a team challenge win, if they win outright, so not the team that gets second at the immunity, but the one that gets first, they get 3 points. Individual immunity wins will be 5 points when we get to the merge. Making the merge will be 5 points. I haven't given those 5 points for the making the merge as of yet because it's yet to be confirmed if next week is actually a merge. And if it isn't a fake merge, it could still be a fake merge. You just don't know. Successful advantage players is 5 points. Finding an advantage is 3 points. Votes casted against you. Each vote casted against you is minus 0.5. Being the overall runner-up of the season is 25 points, and winning the season is 50 points. There is also bonus categories for most confessionals of the season, most individual immunity wins, most advantages found, and least votes casted against them. Each one of those get 25 points as well. So there's a lot more to this than just winning it outright. So Jake has been leading the whole season, and I can confirm he is still leading. So I've got a total with my team of 156 points. Jake is leading on 194 points. Jake's top 3 players heading into this next episode is in joint second, 3rd, and 4th. So I might as well read this out because there's a few players that he's got that have really accumulated a lot of points for him. Carla's on 27, Mike is on 27, and Ali is on 27. Then in first place for him is Jesse on 37 points. So a 10-point difference between Jesse and those players. Are you surprised that Jesse, Carla, Mike, and who else was again? Ali. There are the main players for him at this point. Is that a surprise to you?
No, not really, because they've basically been also main players of the season as well.
Yep, those are the players that stand out. So on my team, there is a real big difference between some of these points. But in 3rd place overall, I've got, you're going to be shocked at this, I didn't see it coming, Janine at 22 points. She really made up a lot of points in this last episode because she had 7 confessionals and she had an advantage find, which really gave us some points. So she's now my 3rd overall player for my team. In 2nd place is Noel at 25.5 points at this stage. And then quite a gap between Cody and the rest of my team. Cody is at first at 43.5. He's also the overall highest point getter at this stage. He's got the most confessionals, most challenge wins, and he's found an advantage. He's got an idol in his pocket. Let's not forget, Mucky, he can still make some things happen with this idol when he gets to the merge. So for those that are watching the video version of this, I will for a second bring up the points so that you can have a look at that. That is how the points are lining up at this stage on the spreadsheet. And Mucky, this is a little bit of a advanced notice for you on how the draft will work when we do Australian Survivor later this season, later next year. I believe it'll be February next year. We'll have a similar point structure. I might just amend some things, but this is how it's going to be looking.
Yeah. I mean, the best part about Australian Survivors, all you really need to make sure is that you pick the big players of the season, because sometimes they get 20 confessionals in just one episode. So
I feel like I need to make confessional 0.5 points or something in Australian Survivor, because it's going to be too even that 1 point is too OP for confessionals if only 3 people get confessionals every single episode, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Mucky, is there anything else that you feel like we haven't touched on that you would like to talk about for this episode? Did we miss anything?
I I feel like it's quite interesting how Carla and James are really struggling to deal with quote unquote paranoid players. Obviously, Lindsay got a bit paranoid. Obviously, it's like the first tribal council you're attending to. So I kind of, and then she gets taken out. And then they talk about voting out Cassidy because, like, yeah, she knows 2 votes are going on her, and she's just worried about an advantage playing on her. So I think, like, the fact that they can't really deal with paranoid players makes it interesting how they're going to handle Ryan, who definitely knows that he's on the bottom.
Yeah, I don't think that Ryan is going to give them the time of day. I think he's going to move like a shot out of a cannon. He's just going to be gone, and he's going to go somewhere else. That's my call on Ryan. But I think you bring up an interesting point. I think that Cassidy had some reason to feel nervous, in the sense that she knew people were coming for her. She knew Gio was potentially going to go get an advantage. That means that Gio, if he got an idol, for instance, because you don't know what he's going to get, he could play it on Ryan, he could play it on himself. That's a 50% shot of them being safe if he caught wind that the vote was going in a different direction. And she knew that she was the one that was being at risk. It's easy to be the calm one in that situation when you're 5 players and you know you're not getting votes coming your way. She knew she was going to get some votes. So I don't blame her as much as Lindsay. I don't think it was as big of a fail as Lindsay sort of, brought to herself within that first episode. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's an interesting thing. And again, it just strengthens my whole thing. I don't see Coco having the players that's going to win this game. I just don't see it.
No, I don't either.
I'd be happy for Carla if she won it. I think it would be a very entertaining win from the start to see her play from the shadows and do it. But I just don't foresee it at this stage. So I disagree with the community that voted for Coco having the most likely one. Please don't at me, guys. But yeah, I strongly feel like it's going to be either a Bucca or a Vessi player that's going to win this season. And I'm leaning towards. I don't know actually where I'm leaning, because I just love so many of these players. They even though I've been very critical of some of the strategic moves, like I said from the start, is it entertaining? Is the show fun to watch with them making some of these sloppy gameplay? Is always more fun than people playing the game perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm putting all my cash, all my chocolate milks onto Cody.
Yep. Yeah,
100%. Let's
if Cody takes it out, man, I'll love that. I mean, let's hope that happens, because that would be a win for me for sure, because he's been carrying my draft team as well. And it's just, he's just living out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if Cody wins, I want my own segment on this channel.
What's the segment?
ranking chocolate milks.
Ranking chocolate milks, okay.
Ranking chocolate milks. If Cody wins,
Jeez. Now I don't know if I should shout for him, because I feel like that's I don't know how many people will be watching Ranking Chocolate Milks, on the channel.
Might get a lot more of Kiwi farmers, bring in the Kiwi audience,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, Mucky, it's been great talking to you about Survivor 43, episode 5. For those that got to this point of the podcast or the YouTube video, please consider subscribing, liking. Even if you're listening to the audio version, it does help with the growth of the channel if you jump on YouTube, and also subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers, which is the next big milestone for us as a channel. So anytime you do subscribe and like the video, or even just comment below to say what you liked about this video, what you didn't like, what did you agree, not agree with, it all helps with the YouTube algorithm. And ultimately the goal is the more people we get subscribing, the more people we can make involved, bring them on as guests on the channel as well, because it just helps with our credibility. Thank you so much. Mucky, you're frozen there, so I'm going to end it now.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
That was crazy.
See you guys later. Bye.
Have a good one.